Hey there. Today I'm going to be talking about my transformation and how I am where I am today. I think out of all the self-improvement people that are going to be going through this generation that I went through are all going to have very common transformations compared to mine. You're most likely going to have the transformation that I had. The same generation had the same traps, and it also just had the same addictions, and everyone just ended up falling through the same holes. And there's going to be certain people who stay in those holes, and there's going to be certain people who get up. And I'm going to talk about how I got through those holes today. I don't think my transformation occurred at this time, but this is when it all started, who I am as a person and my experiences throughout my life, which was around at 11 years old. Well, why? Because this is when I dated my first girl, and through that, it was probably, if not one of the most amazing feelings I ever felt in my life. I was 11 years old, so I was just going through puberty, and now all of a sudden I have access to a new, completely different feeling that I've never felt before. And it was just this new, amazing thing that I never understood. And because of that, I would hang out with this girl almost every day. And in around like 2 or 3 months, I think we broke up. And to me, those 3 months were a very long and like amazing time. And I think what happened in that period of 2 to 3 months is I opened my heart to the idea of relationships and love and lust and all other kinds of things. I think when I was around 10, I went through puberty, so I was an early boomer and all that stuff. Before I went in a relationship with this girl, I was always cold-hearted to the idea of dating a woman. I thought it was just a weakness. I tried to avoid eye contact with them, all the other stuff, and we'll get to that in a minute. But through that relationship, I realized something. I didn't have control over my lust, my yearning for like connection and love. I don't know what it was, but something happened to me. I hope you understand what I mean and you don't take this wrong way. But I ended up turning into a person that was out of control. I was trying to get back with this girl. I was very lonely. I was going through so many emotions at once. I couldn't control any of it. I tried to distract myself constantly. I was always thinking about this girl. And the whole idea of that is it wasn't a need. What it really was is that I couldn't control my desires. I wanted to be in a relationship really bad now. I made it become a huge thing in my life where I was always thinking about girls, and I was always thinking about getting into environments where I'd be able to talk to them and all that kind of stuff. It kind of consumed me. Well, why? Because I didn't know how to control it. Anyways, the last couple years after that were kind of sad. Maybe about 2 years after that, I just kind of wallowed in my sadness. Everything was a drag. Everything was just kind of miserable. I dragged through life. My grades went down in school. The whole thing happened just because I couldn't control my desires. My desires consumed what I thought. They consumed my brain. And then when I turned around 13, I started talking to this other girl. I'm not gonna get too into it. It's a whole big story, but I was talking to this other girl about the same thing happened, but worse, because we didn't get into a relationship. I just formed this huge attachment to this girl just because she gave me attention. It was bad. Like at that point, the idea of a girl my age in the same room I was in was just like I couldn't control myself. If a girl my age went into the room that I was in, she was attractive, there would be times where all I'd be thinking about is that girl. It would just consume my life. And then things started to slightly change when I started seeing the trends of this Andrew Tate guy and his Andrew Tate shorts. You know, I don't want to raise the popularity of some guy like him, but like I started watching them and it was like, oh, you know what? Yeah. You know, he is right. And then me at 13, I thought that this was the next prophet or something. You know, I thought like, yeah, you know, this guy, like he knows everything. Like, women are a distraction and all that stuff. And a lot of the advice was wrong. A lot of the advice was very lustful, egotistical, and all that kind of stuff. But what it did, that I'm glad, is that it threw me into a place of insecurity. And what that did is that made me go to the gym. And it made me kind of change my life. It made me change my looks. My looks were miserable. They were still miserable after I changed them, but I was starting to improve. I was starting to get the idea of self-improvement and improving. And it's a very funny story. I'll go back to when I was like 11 through 13 and a little bit of 14. I made a big mistake and I ended up going to this private school with special ed kids. I didn't want to, but I signed up for it when I was like 9 because I was convinced that this was a better school for me somehow and I wanted to go to it. But when I was 11, I was like, no, I want to get a girlfriend. I want to have friends. I want to have a life and all that stuff. And what that did is that made my life just slightly more miserable. So I'm watching this Andrew Tate stuff, right? And I'm lifting weights, and I'm like, my ego is like rising to a level where it just kind of made me look like an idiot. And I had a lot of bad takes against women and all that stuff. So I didn't have that good of a reputation, but it was something. It was better than what I had. And that's why there was something in me that kind of rised up, I guess. And then when I turned 14, which 2024 was coming up, that year, I got out of private school and I went into a high school. That's when everything changed. I realized, like, my old friends are there, all those things are there, like the LGBT and like all the stuff like that Andrew Tate talks about and all that crap, because I was hidden in a cell for so long. And it kind of, a lot of it wasn't too good, but there was a part of it that was, and it motivated me to be better. It motivated me to improve. And I was still watching Andrew Tate podcasts and the shorts and the ego hits and all this stuff. But at least this was the start of changing my life. So, and then when that year of private school ended, so it was summer, so it was 2 months before high school, actual high school, not private school. I was very motivated that summer. I started realizing on the internet and stuff that adult content's bad for you and scrolling is bad for you and all that stuff. And so I was starting to work on that and all the addictions and everything. And then all of a sudden, those 2 months fly by and it's the first day of school. Holy shit. I think I got about 4 hours of sleep and I was on like Adderall and caffeine and stuff. I started taking these Adderall pills because I had ADHD or something. So I was like, okay. And then I was taking caffeine. So like the first day I was just super buzzed the whole time. And I was nervous and I was excited and everything. So just like the first day was just a dopamine, just fire. And before the first day of school, a few weeks back, I think, I got into a few fights with my old friends on text and stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, when this year starts, me and my friends are gonna jump you, all this stuff that they said. And so I was hitting the bag and stuff, and I was like, bite somebody. All that stuff was firing. The next day was pretty much the same. The next week was the same. The next month was basically the same. But the problem is I played this persona that I was a super big tough guy this whole time because of, well, the things I learned from Andrew Tate and my insecurities of myself. So I played this really big tough guy, but I wasn't super tough. I was underdeveloped in my physique and I didn't know, I kind of knew how to fight, but I wasn't super good. I was just super motivated. And so I was getting picked on, Ashton, you say all this stuff and your arms are skinny and all this stuff that they say and said to me. And so that motivated me even more. So I was weightlifting even more now. I was getting crazy with it, And I saw that a girl liked me in my class. And then I saw another girl like me in my class. One of those girls was trying to impress me in school and say hi to me and all that stuff. But what do you think happened? What do you think happened when that happened? Because you remember when I was like 11 or 12 years old, my ability to control my lustful emotions and my craving for connection and all that stuff, like craving to get a girlfriend, my ability to control that was very bad. Thinking about this girl, thinking about her more than I should have been. I was really nervous to talk to her. I didn't really talk to her very much because I was a nervous person because of a few things. And I also was kind of an introvert and I haven't talked to people very long. I let a few months go by without talking to her, and then I ended up trying to talk to her and it was really bad. And then a little after that, I get motivated to go into a Muay Thai boxing gym. So I start actually training in a gym. But that only inflates my ego even more, right? So that destroyed my reputation. Why? Well, because everyone knew that I couldn't. They didn't see it in me. I'm very developed in my physique. I wasn't all of that, if you know what I mean. So I have summer off. So summer comes along and I realize that I'm actually really depressed. I am very addicted to dopamine and I just had sex addiction overall. Like I just had terrible lust, and I spend this whole summer trying to break all my addictions and all that stuff. And I kind of do it halfway. I get better at it. I start realizing things. I'm disciplined with scrolling and disciplined with all video games and stuff. And then this year comes along and it's the same thing. I'm super wired. I have all this ego, new year, new me, like I'm not like I was before. And I'll come up to all the people that know me, and like, I'm different now. Like, I'm not that weak piece of scum that I was before. Like, this whole Andrew Tate ego. And then I watch Andrew Tate even more than I used to. And that carries on for like 3 months. And then I start chasing women again. I start thinking about sex, and I start thinking about all that stuff. And it gets really bad this time. I'm like overdoing it. I'm reading books on how to chase women. I'm reading books on how to seduce them and all this stuff. I know that's very disturbing, but like just hang in with me. And then the second half of the year, I realized something. So this is the second semester. Chasing women isn't doing anything. And I need to stop these addictions for real. Like, I can't just half butt it and like pretend I'm someone that I'm not. I need to come clean, and I need to actually become someone, instead of play this whole Andrew Tate thing. And I think that second semester of that year, so now I turn 16 for the next semester because my birthday is in December 21st, and I turn 16 just before the next semester. This year, I go through what's called an identity crisis. I'm removing the distractions. I'm not scrolling anymore. I completely axed scrolling. I don't scroll anymore. But I am relapsing on adult content and all that stuff. And part of me is still trying to get a girl and all that stuff. But it's getting better. It was all in my head. It was just mental health, man. But now that I'm removing some of the distractions, I go through an identity crisis. Who am I? And I stop watching Andrew Tate. I stop watching that shit. And I'm like, who am I? What am I, like, what even drives me to wake up in the morning? Like, there are times where I'll get up, I'll kind of slime around, and then I would take my cold shower like I usually do, and I have 5 eggs and 2 cups of oatmeal and all that stuff. But I didn't know what truly motivated me. And that's when things really started to grow. And so I spend the whole year like that, trying to figure out what's wrong with me. What's wrong with me? Why do I keep relapsing? Why do I keep getting super insecure? Why am I feeling this pain in me? Like, why am I depressed? Why? Like, and I'm taking walks in the middle of the night and stuff, and I'm taking walks now. I'm taking more walks and stuff and trying to figure it out, which is great. And that goes through the whole year, and then I spend that whole summer really grinding out on my purpose. What is my purpose? I'm trying to figure out what could I do with my life. It eventually came to me that it just wasn't going to work at that time. And then I thought of something else. I thought about content creating. I had this YouTube channel that I'm working on. I loved fishing. So I had this fishing channel, and I was like, okay, well, I'm lifting weights and stuff. I'm in this kickboxing gym, but I need something else. This isn't working. None of this is working. I'm depressed still. What is it? What is my purpose? And then I start editing, and I start filming, and I start posting videos. And then a whole new era came, I kept grinding. This summer was the summer where I changed everything, I'm going to become a new man. I'm going to drop all the addictions. I'm going to figure out my purpose. I'm going to become stronger this year. I'm going to come back. And I was also starting to do football. A couple of my friends convinced me to do football class, so I was doing that, which was taking up way too much of my time. And it was actually making my mental health worse. So school comes along. Now it's year 3. Round 3. I was doing fine. I was doing everything right. I was on a 10-day streak, or whatever you want to call it. I was doing fine. I wasn't doing any of the bad habits. I was doing fine, but there's something inside of me that wasn't okay, And that's why I kept going back, because there was that one thing inside of me that still wasn't okay, that I was trying to fix through all those habits. I was feeling restless. I was feeling almost unenergized. I wasn't motivated to do things. I would still post a video. I would still go to the gym. I would still do all my things. But a part of me wasn't feeling okay. So I ended up going back to my habits a little bit. Why am I chasing women again? Why am I like do I have to do this? And that's when I was done with football, because football was over. And now that football was done, I was like, okay, now I need to focus. Now I need to focus. And I did, and I kept on failing. I was sick of failing all these years. I was sick of trying just to fail. I was sick of trying just to end up somewhere else that I didn't want to be. So one morning I looked in the mirror, and you wouldn't guess what I did. I made a promise to myself. A promise that I was going to change. Not just motivated by Andrew Tate to change. Not just any this dopamine crap, like motivation, Like, New Year's resolution, motivated for 2 weeks or something. This was real, no shit. I'm making a promise. I'm not gonna goon. I'm not gonna scroll. I'm not gonna do any of that. I'm going to change. And that's when everything changed. That's when I stopped missing the gym. That's when I started to grow in my life. That's when I started to grow in my YouTube channel. That's when my brain started to find something in my life. And why? Because that promise forced me to start taking life seriously. You know, now I was meditating every freaking day. Now I was journaling twice a day. Now I was watching self-improvement videos every fucking day. Now I was really going to the mental health aspect of my life. And I just kept grinding. I just kept on growing in my life and staying motivated, staying like journaling my thoughts, journaling everything I thought, all my insecurities, you know, watching all these other like videos on lust and all that kind of stuff, like, you know what I mean? And that's when I actually saw progress in my life. Let's say through those 90 days, add like 2 more months to it, that's where I am today. And to tell you the truth, the promise to make to yourself is more than just the promise. You can't just make a promise that you're not gonna skip the gym ever again. Like, you really have to, like, once you make the promise to make your mental health better and change your life, there's nothing else that matters to you more than that goal. Nothing else. There's no more bullcrap fun. There's no more talking to girls. There's no more hanging out with friends that are below you. There's no more skipping anything. There's no skipping the gym. There's no skipping kickboxing. There's no skipping journaling or meditating before bed. There's none of that. The promise is strong, but are you strong enough? Strong enough for what? Strong enough to make the promise. One day it's gonna come to you, but you have to wait. You can't just look in the mirror today and go, I promise I will not goon ever again. Like, you can't do that. That's not how it works. You need to feel so much pain and so much misery from the way that you're living right now that you make the promise that you're gonna change how you live simply because of how painful it is. And I hope you guys like my story, but that's the end of it. I'm gonna wrap it up here. My feet are freezing. It's -12, so I'm gonna go inside and warm up. Make sure to take life seriously. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.